Hi, my name is Mitchell Ryan Smith. Today I will be showing you a presentation on gifted and talented students. The aim of this presentation is to identify and discuss what is required when teaching the gifted and talented learners in a mixed ability class structure. Throughout this presentation, we are going to explore 4 areas of discussion around gifted and talented learners. These consist of: what exactly does gifted and talented refer to? The characteristics of gifted and talented learners, how to identify gifted and talented learners in a classroom, and challenges of gifted and talented contemporary education. To begin this discussion, you might be wondering what is meant by gifted and talented. There are many definitions available out there to define this. However, the Australian curriculum states that Garnier outlines the most appropriate and relevant definitions to define both gifted and talented. Garnier defined gifted and talented in a 2008 article as the possessions and use of outstanding natural abilities called aptitudes in at least one ability domain, whereas talented was defined as an outstanding mastery of systematically developed abilities known as competencies in at least one field of human activity. It is crucial as an educator to have an understanding of what is required when defining gifted and talented students. This in turn will assist in addressing every student's individual needs in the classroom. To be acknowledged and identified as a gifted and/or talented individual, students must fall in the top 10 of a relevant field or domain. The identification process of gifted and talented students in our schools is targeted at the top 10% of students. This will be explored further throughout the presentation. While there are many definitions of giftedness that are commonly used, the 2 I want to touch on include the 1972 Maryland definition and the incorporation of both Tenenbaum and Gagné. The federal government chooses to use the 1972 Maryland definition, which covers several areas such as the general intellect ability of a gifted student, specific academic aptitude, creative and productive thinking, leadership and ability, and the ability in visual or performing arts. In the recommended reading published by J.B. Osborne in 2000, Gross stresses the fundamental importance of education, effort, motivation, chance, and societal values in correspondence with the widely used definitions by Tenenbaum and Gagné. Although gifted learners are high achievers in a variety of educational levels and talent areas, it is crucial to understand the importance of emotional experiences on these students and the modifications that will need to be undertaken when parenting, teaching, and counselling these learners. Adjusting how we approach and educate gifted students will further assist us in facilitating their own optimal development. Unlike the needs of your everyday school children, gifted students are influenced significantly by the degree to which they think differently from other school peers. They have unique needs that require to be met, which include the demand of appropriate education, satisfying friendships, and the ongoing support received from parenting. As this visual presentation is discussing the gifted and talented in relation to education in contemporary Australia, I will touch on the elements of appropriate education. Appropriate differentiation of Australian curriculum to meet the needs of the child's learning ability should be incorporated throughout pedagogical planning to engage and challenge the students in relevant content. Like many other human beings, the surrounding environment of oneself can either positively impact or disadvantage your individual growth. For example, low-income families that are affected by lack of money and hence opportunities for students to learn, whereas middle wealthy income families have the opportunities to engage their children in online educational programs and weekend summer schools to flourish their gifted or talented abilities. There are many components that contribute to identifying a child as gifted. Akara mentions that these domains, according to Gagne's differentiated model of giftedness and talent, consists of the student's potential being distinctly above average in one or more of the following domains of human ability. These include intellectual, creative, social, perceptual, and physical, that involves muscular abilities of fine and gross motor skills and reflex abilities comprising of complex physical activities. As giftedness is a broad concept that consists of a range of abilities in one or more areas, Gagne's model recognizes that giftedness is only potential. Furthermore, in order for gifted students to become talented, it is crucial that they receive the adequate support necessary to assist them in the transformation process throughout their schooling life. As mentioned in the earlier slide, Gagne believes that to be identified as gifted or talented, you must fall within the top 10% of two categories: natural abilities and gained competencies. Leading on from this statistic by Hogan, Dr. Michael Faulkner, a lecturer in gifted and special needs education at La Trobe University, believes that gifted learners make up for 2% of the entire population. Although there is a prevalence amongst these statistics, there is no real number of how many gifted and talented people there are in the world, as our population is forever changing. Like any aspect of life, people always hold their own beliefs and assumptions. Gifted and talented children are often assumed to be many things, such as successful piano players, champions at chess, or even show high interest in developing computer programs from an early age. However, these children are extremely rare. Gifted children are amongst many other peers with learning difficulties and needs that require to be altered. A few typical assumptions about gifted children is that they are able to look after themselves without instruction, have pushy parents, do not have a diagnosis of any disability, and are often seen as children who come from overambitious, middle-class families in rich social capitals. Research suggests that many gifted learners often come from underprivileged backgrounds. The education cover story Too Clever by Half, published in the Age newspapers in 2008 by Belinda Hogan, provides an example of a gifted child, Sam, who is 9 years of age and has been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Sam is able to discuss concepts with his peers that require a higher understanding that those peers can grasp. His mother Fiona describes Sam as a young male who learns quickly, has an adult sense of humour, and holds an interest in things that are on a deeper level. Sam is defined as someone who is able to hold conversations with university professors, but often lacks his view of friendship as he is left out of peer groups and is constantly looking for his soulmate. These misconceptions of gifted children can often make life for the gifted and their parents extremely difficult, with these parents praying and hoping the community conceptions will change and government policies on schooling the gifted will shift with them. We will now discuss the characteristics of gifted and talented students. The first one being the social and emotional characteristics of young gifted children. Gifted learners often have a misconception and expectations of friendships and companionship amongst fellow peers. They prefer the company of older children as they have the ability to engage and communicate on a high level of knowledge. Gifted students have a high level of independence, self-confidence, high moral thinking, and perfectionist tendencies. They are able to enjoy and comprehend reading books that are published for students of an older age. While these social and emotional characteristics of gifted learners explore many aspects, it is important to acknowledge that these individuals who are gifted often experience heightened emotions which can potentially impact their daily life. Leading on from the social and emotional characteristics, it is crucial as an educator to have a baseline understanding of the cognitive characteristics associated with gifted children. Many of these cognitive characteristics of gifted learner develop at a young age and are visibly noticeable. From early on, many gifted students have exceptional vocabulary skills, displayed abilities in early maths, art, and music, often get frustrated if the rate of learning is slow as they are ahead of their peers due to their giftedness. An unusually increased rate of learning and are able to visually use abstract symbol learning from a very young age. As gifted learners mature, they often seek independence in their own schoolwork, are able to think logically and self-reflect effectively. In 1956, Benjamin Bloom, Max Engelhardt, Edward First, Walter Hill, and David Crothwell designed and published a framework known as Bloom's taxonomy that aims to categorize educational goals and has been distributed widely for many generations of teachers. Bloom's taxonomy consists of 6 major domains where each category consists of subcategories. However, the taxonomy is highly regarded and remembered for the 6 main categories amongst educators. The first category, knowledge, involves the recall of specifics, methods, and processes. Secondly is the category comprehension, which refers to the type of understanding that the individual can relay what is being communicated without relating it to other material or identifying implications. The application process follows comprehension and refers to the concrete situations on the task. Analysis represents the breakdown of elements and links between ideas expressed. Following analysis is the synthesis, which aims to put together elements and parts to form a whole. The last category of Bloom's taxonomy is evaluation. This is where judgments about the material and methods are formed and moulded together for given purposes. Bloom's taxonomy is used throughout educational systems as it assists in extending a gifted child's thinking process through a number of variances of content. Having an organised delivery method to suit the individual needs aids teachers in planning and delivering appropriate education, designing assessment tasks to suit the gifted as they are at a higher level of education in one or more elements, and ensures that instruction and assessment are aligned with the overall goals first initiated. So how do we identify gifted learners? The identification of gifted and talented learners naturally begins with the parents. Subjective judgments are made based on observations of the gifted student from teacher, parents, and peers. There is a standardised process for identifying the gifted and talented. This includes nomination, which is a subjective data, screening, which is objective data including standardised testing such as NAPLAN and individual teacher-made tests. And following after identification is monitoring. It is crucial as an educator to hold an understanding that many elements cannot discriminate against the gifted and talented students and support underachieving students in other areas of academia. As not all gifted and talented fit the same shoe, having a baseline knowledge of how to identify gifted and talented students in the classroom will assist the delivery of education. Akara mentions that it is important to consider the gifted and talented students are not a homogeneous group and may require adjustments to their individual learning. Borland and Wright suggest that making adjustments to delivery and content of education based on the individual profile data is considered best practice as it allows the judgment of professional to be individual rather than just a numerical score. In trying to teach gifted and talented students, there are many challenges that educators will be faced with in the classroom, which is why it is essential to be able to recognise and accommodate the needs of those. Firstly, gifted and talented students are often overlooked for students who are underachieving based off the standardised educational system. They are perceived as perfectionists and high achievers, which can be a struggle in the classroom if they are not receiving the education and support needed. They may often lose interest and become disruptive to fellow peers. There is a huge government push at the moment to get every student over the line, which is where gifted and talented students are often left behind. Often challenges that are faced include socio-economic status, cultural backgrounds, and learning barriers. As these students are already disadvantaged due to their different beliefs and language barriers or lack of financial stability in the home, these challenges are often brought from the home into school, which can negatively hinder the gifted student's ability to reach their highest potential. There are a number of dynamic testing and assessments available that can be used to identify the gifted and talented. Informal testing is observations of the student and is most appropriate form of testing, which can be completed by the teacher, parents, and qualified practitioners. Formal testing includes IQ testing, which gives you an overall numerical score based upon a standardized test. It is not always the best when identifying the gifted and talented, as they don't fall into the same category of talent. In order to understand the development of gifted children, it is important as a teacher that we are supportive and accommodating gifted and talented students in our classrooms to ensure a fair and equal classroom for all based on the children's ability and modifications in education, parenting, and social relationships. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you got a good insight into what is required when teaching the gifted and talented in a mixed ability class structure.